Today I'm helping my nephew to fix up his 2009 Jeep Patriot, and we had to replace what's called the Manivertor. It's the exhaust manifold and a catalytic converter all in one. It's pretty common that it gets cracks in the top surfaces here, and exhaust was getting in the engine compartment and the check engine light goes off, and so it needs to be fixed. So yeah, it's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do unless you have the right tools and everything and you have some time. But I didn't find any really good videos online, so I'm gonna see what I can do to explain this through a little bit better. I've got a list here of what I did in order. I removed the passenger front CV shaft just to give me some more room to get to the bracket bolts up in there. So remove the passenger front CV shaft, obviously tires, rotors, get into there. And then the bracket bolts to this maniverter. Here's the bracket here. It fits up in the compartment like that. And so remove those 4 bolts and take that bracket off the bottom of the maniverter, and then remove that bracket from the engine, and then remove the exhaust manifold bolts. Now you can get to them pretty easy. Remove the oxygen sensor off the top of it. Remove the heat shield from the manifold. There's a heat shield on top and bottom, and let me grab them here. They are sandwiched together in there and basically fits in like this. And so there's a top and a bottom one. The bottom one has captured nuts. The bolts will usually break. When you get a new manifold ordered, it usually comes with new nuts and bolts so that you can put those heat shields back in. But you can tell by the burning on here, the soot, that the manifold is leaking underneath there through cracks and putting out, quite a bit of soot. So after you get all that undone, the basic stuff, it gets a little trickier. You have to remove the front, the underneath the motor bracket that keeps the motor from shifting back and forth. So that would be this from underneath. I remove that out. That's just 3 bolts, 4 bolts. Remove the stud bolt for the motor lift bracket, which is, where did you go? I don't know where I put it. Anyway, it's the little lift bracket that fits on top of the engine right back in here. And so you have to remove that out to give yourself a little bit more clearance. And then you remove the engine shield or shroud studs, which are these that are on the back of the engine that help to hold, that you pop the plastic shield down onto. So remove those 2 off the back of the engine. Remove the heat shield off the back of the firewall here that fits right back in here. Get that out of there for a little bit more room. Now you have to remove the coolant and the windshield washer jugs and brake fluid. Got to remove those so that you can get to the motor mount on the right or passenger side. You have to remove the motor mount. Jack up the engine. Don't jack it up, but put a jack underneath it so that can't fall. Remove the motor mount. And what's next? The 2 lines on the back, the 2 cooling lines on the back of the engine back here on the firewall. Pull those off and move them aside so you have a little bit of room, because then now you're going to drop the engine down. You're going to lower it down, and I think that's about all the details. And then, okay, so I'll show you. You drop the engine down as far as it'll go, and it's sitting on the cross member now, and it's kind of sitting on the steering rack, so you have to be a little bit gentle with it. But then, this is how the maniverter was in there, right? So to get it out of there, after you've got all that done and all that loose, it's a clockwise rotation, and then around like this, and then you can sneak it out. It's just barely, but then it comes out. So it can be done. It's quite a bit of work. I did it slowly, but it's been 3 days I've been working on this a little bit at a time. So putting it back in is the opposite, obviously, but if you don't have a hoist and you don't have all the tools necessary, it's a pretty tough job. I think that's a pretty good explanation. I don't think I need to dig in there and show you anything else besides that. So have a great day. Good luck. All right, so in addition to what I told you earlier, a few details here. These are the hoses on the back of the cooling system, the heating system, that have to come off the firewall, right? This is the bracket of the engine that has to be removed from the back driver's side. These are the plugs here that have to be removed that help to hold the top shield for the engine when it's all put back together. Down here, when it's all removed and the engine is dropped, you will crush that heat shield that's on top of the steering column or the steering rack. In the instructions, I found it recommended to remove that ahead of time. If yours has not been crushed and the exhaust manifold has never been changed, I'd recommend removing that ahead of time. It's only 3 bolts. One front, one side, right? That's where the exhaust hooks into the donut when I put it back in. Here's the back side of the engine, and all the bolts came out very easily. The hardest part was snaking that manifold and catalytic converter combination out of this. So below, the engine is supported with a jack. Right now, I lifted it back up a little bit. I'll drop it down some just so you can see. It's got quite a bit of movement. I got all kinds of space in here now that helps to get that thing out of there. But you got to keep things labeled and make sure your connections are right. Here is the motor mount that needs to come out. Here is the mount. These 3 long bolts are what go into the side of the engine. There. The 3 shorter bolts have a side. So basically, it goes right in here. But that allows you to drop that engine. So just trying to give you anything I can. It does take a lot of clearing work, but it's just nuts and bolts, right? I'm going to add just a little bit more. That this is a 2.4 liter 4-wheel drive vehicle. And so that being said, after I pulled the constant velocity joint on the passenger front side, I tried to find a bushing or a seal to redo the seal down here on the transfer case. I've had a hard time finding it because I kept looking up a seal for a differential. But on this vehicle, 2009 Patriot 2.4 liter 4-wheel drive, to find that seal, which is 2.82 inches diameter, I had to put a caliper on it so that I could compare other ones. 2.82 inches, and that is, you would find it through looking up a transfer case seal, and there's only 1 necessary, where there's 2 necessary for that would be for the left side and the rear, I believe. So I still have not confirmed this. It's not necessary that it's replaced, but I want to try to fix everything I can while it's open. All right, well, this was another helpful little tip. One of my neighbors had this tool, which I've never met before, and I didn't know it existed, but when you have to remove this oxygen sensor from a vehicle, whether this manifold was in the vehicle, that's when you have to remove this one. Or if it's down on your exhaust system and it's really hard to get to, there's a set-made oxygen sensor socket wrench. And so here's a socket that would fit over this line like that and let you get to it. Or here's a crow's foot kind of attachment where you could get into it like this. And so this set is invaluable. It would be really hard to get that out of there. I had a hard time with just a 7/8 inch wrench. I could not get it to come out of there without a special tool. So try that. tip of the day.